You're staring at your phone, replaying the moment he chose her. Not because she's better, not because you weren't enough, but because in that moment he made a choice that felt like a punch to your soul. And now you're left with this ache, this question, why not me? But here's the truth no one tells you. Being chosen doesn't always mean being cherished. And not being chosen doesn't make you forgettable. In fact, if you play this right, not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with quiet, powerful evolution, you'll become the one he can't stop thinking about, the one he dreams of at 2 a.m., the one who set a standard he can't seem to replace. He may have picked her for now, but when you reclaim your energy, your self-worth, and your glow, you become the woman who doesn't wait to be wanted. You become the one he wants back. Ready to learn how? Let's break it down. When someone chooses someone else over you, especially after a connection that felt real, it can shake your self-esteem to the core. You start to wonder what you did wrong, what she had that you didn't, and how it all slipped through your fingers. But the first and most powerful move you can make in that moment isn't to prove your worth to him. It's to shift the entire focus back onto you. The truth is, chasing an answer or looking for closure from someone who didn't choose you only keeps you tied to a story that no longer serves you. What makes the biggest impact, what truly makes him notice, is when you completely remove your energy from his world and pour it back into yours. The most attractive energy you can give off isn't desperation. It's not trying to compete with her or hoping he sees your worth if you hang around just long enough. No. It's when you quietly disappear from the equation and start showing up for yourself in a way you never did while you were busy trying to win his love. When you stop texting first. When you stop watching his stories. When you stop checking his page to see what they're doing together, and instead you turn your attention to building a life so rich, so full, so magnetic, that he can't help but feel the void your absence leaves behind. Men don't start to miss you when you're still accessible. They don't start regretting their choice when you're subtly proving you're still an option. They miss you when they feel your energy has gone cold, when the warmth, the emotional support, the attention you once gave so freely is gone, and they realize it wasn't guaranteed. It was a gift, and they took it for granted. That's when the shift begins to happen, not because you said anything, but because silence is powerful. Your distance speaks volumes. When you show that you're no longer in orbit around him, he has to sit with the consequences of his own choices. And more often than not, that's when men start to question whether they chose wrong. Not because they were guilt-tripped into it, but because deep down they realized they lost something irreplaceable. It's not about making him jealous. It's not about creating a highlight reel just to get his attention. That still puts him at the center of your decisions. It's about actually rebuilding the foundation of who you are without needing him to see it. And ironically, that's exactly what makes him look, because nothing drives curiosity like the question, what is she up to without me? Especially when what he sees isn't bitterness, but elevation, confidence, peace, a woman who no longer needs to be wanted to feel worthy. That shift from needing validation to embodying self-worth is magnetic. It changes how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you show up in rooms. It sends a clear message, not just to him, but to everyone watching. You may have lost someone who made the wrong choice, but you haven't lost yourself. In fact, you've found a version of yourself that's more powerful than ever. And that's the real win. Not getting him back, but becoming so whole, so grounded, that you don't even want the version of him who didn't see your value in the first place. That's when he'll want back in, and that's when you'll realize the person you became in the process was worth far more than the love you were trying to hold on to. There's something undeniably magnetic about a woman who doesn't flinch at being left behind. While the world expects her to break, to chase, to prove her worth, she does the opposite. She gathers herself, breathes through the pain, and chooses elevation. That's the kind of woman who lingers in a man's mind long after the thrill of the new has worn off. The second you stop trying to prove that you are the better choice, and instead focus on becoming the kind of woman who doesn't need to be chosen to be valuable, you step into a version of power that no man can touch. The truth is, when a man moves on to someone else, he's often chasing a feeling. Maybe it's novelty, maybe it's ease, maybe it's his own ego. But over time, novelty fades. What once felt exciting starts to feel normal. And that's when the weight of his decision really starts to sink in. Because while he was chasing something shiny and new, you were becoming something rare. A woman who doesn't wait around, a woman who doesn't beg, a woman who uses heartbreak as fuel, not as a finish line. And that transformation, him watching you become stronger, more grounded, more luminous, is the exact thing that plants the seed of regret in his mind, not because you intended it, but because he starts to realize that while he was moving sideways, you were rising. He went for comfort, you became untouchable. And that contrast begins to haunt him. A man doesn't regret losing a woman who clings. He regrets losing the woman who let go with grace, the woman who didn't make his choice about her value, the woman who quietly decided she deserved more than breadcrumbs and never looked back. When you move on without dramatics, without revenge, without broadcasting your glow up, your silence becomes the echo he can't escape. And here's where the shift happens. Because in the beginning, he might not even notice your absence. He's busy playing with his new toy. But life has a funny way of revealing truths. Maybe the connection he thought would be effortless begins to feel hollow. Maybe the woman he chose doesn't challenge him, doesn't bring out the best in him the way you did. And suddenly, he starts to wonder, what if I made a mistake? But by then, you're not the same woman he left. You've evolved. You've stopped shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's indecision. You've stopped auditioning for a role that should have already been yours, and now you're glowing from the inside out, not because of a man, but because you built a life that reflects your worth. That's the kind of transformation that changes the game. It's not about making him want you again. It's about becoming the kind of woman who no longer needs to be wanted by someone who couldn't see her the first time. And in doing so, you don't just reclaim your power, you become unforgettable. Because what haunts a man isn't the woman who begged him to stay. It's the woman who let him walk away and never look back. The woman who didn't crumble, but evolved. The woman who became living proof that losing her was the worst decision he ever made. And by the time he realizes it, you're not even looking in his direction anymore. You're already gone. Not bitter, not broken, just elevated, untouchable, and free. It's easy to think that if you want someone back, you need to show them how much you miss them. You assume if they could just see your heart, feel your pain, they come running back with regret. But the truth is, desperation never pulls someone in. It pushes them further away. The third key is understanding that your silence speaks louder than any confession ever could. Not replying, not checking in, not chasing. That's what hits the hardest, because it's not anger, it's indifference. And that scares someone more than any outburst ever will. When you stop showing up where you're not appreciated, you flip the power dynamic. Instead of trying to remind them of what you had, you let them experience what it's like to live without you. And that absence, it lingers. It creates a space that no one else can fill, no matter how quickly they try to replace you. They might laugh louder, post more, look happier, but deep down, they'll feel it. The weight of your silence, the peace in your distance, the dignity of you not asking to be chosen again. That's what people remember. Not the woman who tried to prove her worth, but the one who knew it without saying a word. You don't need to announce your evolution. You don't need to prove that you're doing better. The moment you stop reacting is the moment they realize they've lost something real, something grounded, something rare. Because your silence is not passive, it's powerful. It tells them you are done without the need for explanation. And here's the beautiful irony. The moment you stop trying to get their attention is usually when they start looking for yours. They check your stories, they scroll through old messages, they wonder if they still live in your mind the way you used to live in theirs. But you don't, because you've moved on. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started choosing yourself, and that choice changes everything. When someone leaves you, there's this temptation to remind them of what they walked away from, to reach out, to keep the connection warm. But when you resist that urge and choose stillness instead, you hold a mirror to their decision, They are forced to see what life is like without you, not just hear about it, not just imagine it, but feel it. And it's in that space of nothingness that the truth becomes loud. Maybe they didn't realize what they had. Maybe they did and thought they'd find better. But now, there's no you to text at midnight, no emotional safety net, no familiar presence that says, I'll always be here. And maybe that's when it dawns on them. They didn't just lose someone who loved them, they lost someone who saw them, who cared deeply, who would have given them the world. And they chose temporary excitement over depth, a shallow thrill over a meaningful connection. That realization doesn't hit all at once, but when it does, it's piercing. And by then the silence has done its job. It has protected your dignity. It has preserved your peace. It has elevated your value. Because the most unforgettable woman isn't the one who fought to stay. It's the one who left with grace. The one who let silence say what words never could. The one who didn't announce her strength, but embodied it. And that's the woman who leaves a permanent imprint on a man's soul. Quietly, completely, and without ever needing to return. It's easy to assume that the one who was chosen must have something you don't, that she must be prettier, more exciting, more lovable somehow. But the fourth key is realizing that sometimes it's not about being better, it's about being easier. Some men don't choose what's best for them, they choose what requires the least amount of growth. And when that's the case, you were never really in a competition because you were offering something deeper, something real, something that demanded presence, maturity, and emotional responsibility. That's not something every man is ready for. You see, real connection doesn't just come with the thrill, it comes with the weight of being honest, the weight of showing up consistently, the weight of being accountable for someone else's heart. And when a man is still running from himself, he'll avoid the woman who makes him face his truth. He'll avoid the woman who sees past the performance, past the charm, past the surface. He'll opt instead for someone who doesn't challenge him, doesn't mirror his flaws back at him, and doesn't require more than he's willing to give. And that's the catch. You are asking for more. Not too much. More honesty, more depth, more alignment. But to a man not ready to evolve, even the right amount of more will feel like pressure. So he retreats to comfort, to simplicity, to someone who doesn't demand his higher self. And while it might sting to watch him choose someone else, understand that it's not always a compliment to be chosen by someone who's avoiding growth. Sometimes the real win is not being picked for the version of a relationship that betrays who you truly are. The truth is, the woman who challenges a man emotionally is often the one who scares him the most, not because she's wrong for him, but because deep down he knows she's right. He knows she's the one who could truly love him, not the edited version, not the imaged him. And that kind of love is terrifying to someone who hasn't yet learned to love himself. It requires vulnerability, it requires surrender, and that's not something every man is ready to give, no matter how attracted he is to you. So when he chooses someone else, don't see it as rejection, see it as redirection, not away from love, but toward the kind of love that chooses you back fully, not fearfully. The kind of love that doesn't run when things get real, the kind that stays, the kind that grows, because what you were offering was never too much. It was just too honest for someone living in denial. You weren't difficult, you were discerning. You weren't needy, you were aware. And one day, the man who is ready will recognize that. He'll see your standards and rise to meet them, not run from them. But until then, let him go. Let him stay where he feels safe in his avoidance. Because being chosen by someone who isn't choosing themselves is a hollow victory. It might look like love on the outside, but it's fragile, temporary, built on pretense, not depth. And you were never meant to shrink to fit into something so small. You were meant to expand, to thrive, to connect on a soul level, not just to be liked, but to be known. And when that happens, you won't need to be chosen over someone else. You'll be chosen because of who you are, fully, bravely, unapologetically. There's something undeniably magnetic about a woman who refuses to beg for closure. When a man walks away thinking he's left her shattered, expecting long texts, late-night calls, or emotional pleas, and instead he's met with silence, with composure, with a woman who carries on with her life, something shifts. He realizes he didn't break her, he didn't define her, he didn't hold the power he thought he did. And that right there is the beginning of the reversal. Because emotional strength is rare, and when you show it, especially in the face of heartbreak, it leaves a lasting imprint. You see, most people are predictable when they're hurt. They chase, they argue, they try to prove their worth, but you rise, you breathe, you move forward without theatrics, and that unsettles him because it makes him question the fantasy he created about your dependence. He starts wondering if maybe you weren't as attached as he believed, if maybe the version of you he had in his head was just that, a version, not the truth. And curiosity starts to creep in, regret follows close behind. But the key is, you're not doing this for revenge. You're not putting on a performance to make him miss you. You're genuinely focused on your own healing, your growth, your peace. You're not pretending to be okay. You're becoming okay. That's what makes the difference. That's what makes you unforgettable. Because he knows, on some level, that you loved him. But now he also knows that your love didn't mean you were willing to lose yourself, that you were capable of loving deeply without clinging blindly. And here's the part most people miss. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's choosing your dignity over drama. It's understanding that if someone walks away, your value doesn't decrease. If anything, it becomes more visible. Because a woman who can stand tall after the fall is the kind of woman people remember. She becomes the one who got away, not because she disappeared, but because she elevated. And that elevation is what haunts him more than any words you could ever say. He begins to notice your absence in the places you used to fill, in the moments he used to take for granted, in the sound of his own quiet when he realizes the comfort of your presence is no longer there. And the more you focus on yourself, your joy, your purpose, your glow, the more